Breaking news now, and police in Germany investigating the motive behind an attack on a train in the south of the country say a hand-drawn Islamic State flag has been found at the home of a 17-year-old Afghan immigrant who carried out the attack. 4 people were injured, 3 seriously in the attack near the city of Wolfsburg. The youth wielding an axe was later shot dead by police. Liana Hosea has more.
Officials in Germany say a 17-year-old Afghan immigrant has attacked 4 people on a train near the southern city of Wolfsburg. The assailant went on the rampage armed with an axe and a knife, and 3 of his victims are in critical condition. 14 other passengers are being treated for shock. An eyewitness told local media that the train looked like a slaughterhouse.
3
passengers are severely injured, 1 lightly injured. The attacker had a knife and an axe. The train had to make an emergency stop in Heidingsfeld, and the attacker was shot by the police as he tried to escape.
According to the authorities, the teenager came to Germany as an unaccompanied asylum seeker.
I don't
know how long he has been in Germany. He was with a family who looked after him. We have got in contact with him, and we are looking to see if we can find a motive, to see if we can find some kind of evidence on the family's premises.
The reason for the assault is not yet known, and the authorities have stressed it's too early to jump to conclusions, but many in Germany are worried about its possible repercussions. Liana Hosea, BBC News.
Well, our correspondent Damien McGuinness is in Berlin now with us. So, Damien, we are hearing new revelations now that this hand-drawn Afghan Islamic State flag was found in his flat. Can you tell us more?
Yes, that's right, because as we heard in the package just now, police have been investigating the motivation behind this attack, because if it had been just a troubled young man who went on the rampage for no particular reason, then that would have been a bad incident. But what makes it really worrying for German society as a whole is if this was inspired by so-called Islamic State, and now police say that they have indeed found a handmade flag connected with the IS group logo on it, which does indicate that this could in fact be an Islamist extremist attack, which has a lot of implications here in Germany. On the one hand, that really is confirming some of the worries that people have had since the terrible series of terror attacks in neighbouring France, because experts have been saying it's only a matter of time where similar attacks could happen here in Germany, but also because this young man was an asylum seeker who came from Afghanistan earlier this year. This will strengthen those people who are very critical of Angela Merkel's stance on having taken in so many refugees over the past year. Having said all that, though, what we've seen in Europe as a whole is that generally the attacks have been carried out by people who've grown up in Europe. We've had a number of attacks here in Germany over the past year, lower level attacks than in France, but also carried out by teenagers, often using knives. And in each case, these have been teenagers who have been radicalized by so-called Islamic State, but who were born here, who were not refugees or asylum seekers. This particular case appears to be different because this young man came from Afghanistan, was living in refugee accommodation, and then 2 weeks ago moved to a foster family. So police really now are looking to find out exactly what happened to this young man and why in fact he carried out this attack.
Now, Damien, we know Angela Merkel has faced huge criticism from within her own coalition and from the German public as well for allowing in more than 1 million migrants to enter Germany in 2015. So could attacks like this potentially turn the tide even further?
Well, it's difficult because although there has been criticism for Angela Merkel's stance, I think it's probably more correct to say that the country has been divided. So you have had a lot of people here in Germany not agreeing with high levels of migrants and refugees coming to the country, but you have had equally a lot of people here in Germany supporting that stance. So the country has been really split down the middle almost. But of course, if it turns out that this young man who was a refugee carried out this attack and had been radicalised by IS, then that really will strengthen the case of those people who don't agree with Germany's stance on taking in so many refugees. But we also have to take into account that actually numbers of refugees and migrants over the past few months has dropped drastically. So it's not really an issue that's been hitting the headlines recently here in Germany. That's partly because of the deal made with Turkey recently, and also because of EU initiatives to try and set up a quota system. So it's not something that's really controversial right now. However, this attack, if it turns out that it was a refugee and he was inspired by Islamic State, then this probably will bring now the issue of taking in refugees and migrants back onto the headlines here in Germany.
All right, thank you for bringing us up to date there, Damien McGuinness in Berlin. Now let's get more on our top story. German police investigating the motive behind an attack on a train in the south of the country say a hand-drawn Islamic State flag has been found at the home of the teenager who carried out the attack. 4 people were injured in the knife and axe attack in the south of Germany. The attacker, a 17-year-old Afghan immigrant, was later shot dead by police. Well, Elmar Thewissen is a terrorist analyst and deputy editor-in-chief of ZDF News in Germany, and he joins us now from Mainz near Frankfurt. Now, tell us a little bit more about what you know of the details that are just emerging right now.
Well, we know what happened last night, that this perpetrator acted on his own. That's what they are investigating, of course, whether there is any kind of Islamist background to that, what happened last night. They found in his flat in a small town near Würzburg a self-drawn flag of the Islamic State. That doesn't necessarily mean that he acted on behalf of the Islamic State or that he actually was sent in order to commit those atrocities. But of course, authorities are now speaking to witnesses of what happened last night, plus also they are speaking to people he was in contact with over the last couple of months after he arrived in Germany, possibly 4 or 5 months ago.
Right. And tell us a little bit about the victims. They are seriously injured at the moment. What more do we know about them?
Yeah, we know that most of them are part of a family from Asia, possibly from Hong Kong, who were in this train, possibly on the way to Würzburg on a sightseeing tour in Germany. 4 people were injured on board of the train, attacked with an axe and with a knife. 3 of them have been severely injured. 1 has been lightly injured. And then when the perpetrator fled the train on his way out, he also ran over a local woman. He also injured her with the knife. And shortly thereafter, a special commander of German police, which was coincidentally in the area, was able to stop him. And then actually after he threatened to also attack them, they shot him to death.
Right. Now, we know that he was an unaccompanied minor, and thousands have come to Germany over the last year. In fact, 1 million migrants let in with Angela Merkel's open door policy in 2015. So what is the sense like in Germany about this community?
I think there will be a big discussion about it. The big question is whether this perpetrator acted on his own and if he actually was an Islamist in any way. There seems to be a little indication about that. But also, it could well be a case that there is a young person that is mentally distressed who might have been traumatized. That doesn't excuse what he did last night. But of course, the investigation has to show whether he actually can be considered to be a real Islamist. And that will play a big part in the discussion in Germany. Angela Merkel has been criticized, of course, of letting so many refugees into the country. If among the 1 million who came, there is one for specific reasons who committed those kinds of atrocities, that, of course, is still a very, very low figure. But there are right-wing populists in Germany and extremists as well who will use this case. There's no question about it, in order to stir up the emotions. And we have 2 upcoming elections in September. So it really has to be seen what kind of impact it will have on public opinion in Germany.
Elmar Thewissen, thank you so much for joining us.